Okay, today we're going to do some quick poly editing, learn some of our basic tools for modeling polygons, and we're going to make some furniture and have some fun. So real quick, before I get too deep into that, I do want to show you some Maya settings. This of course is on the Mac. On the Windows machine, I believe you'll find settings and preferences under Windows, but here I click Maya and preferences. The first thing I want to do is go to Save Actions. That's not what I want to do. Files and Projects. So one thing we want to do is make sure that we turn this Autosave feature on. So go ahead and enable that. And then let's go ahead and click Limit Autosaves. And what this is going to do for us is every 10 minutes, Maya is going to autosave whatever we're working on, just in case Maya crashes or something weird happens with your file and you don't want to lose all your work. So Maya is going to come along every 10 minutes. It's going to save your stuff for you in a separate folder of autosaves just in case you need to go and recover those later. And then limiting the number of autosaves to 10 just keeps our hard drive from filling up. So we want to do that. And then we want to go down here to Undo. And right now, by default, Maya has a queue size of 50. That means if you're running along doing all your edits and making stuff happen, you can go back 50 times in the undo. I'm going to set that more to like 100. You could set your queue to infinite, but I think that might possibly eat up a bunch of your RAM. So I'm going to go ahead and save those settings, undo and autosave, so that'll help us out later. I'm going to set my project. And I already had a furniture that I started, but we're going to make a new one. So furniture 2. I'm going to set that project. This location, furniture 2, does not contain the workspace. Yes, create the workspace. Let me go to my project window, make sure furniture 2 should have all those things. I'm going to go to my workspace root. It looks like all of my files are here. So now in Maya projects, furniture 2, I've got folders for assets, autosaves, which we just talked about. Our files will be saved there. Images, scenes, everything else we'll need. So that should all be in place. I'm going to go ahead and just save the file we're working on now into a folder, just so it's there. As you'll see, it tries to go into furniture and scenes, which is exactly where we want it. We'll just call this table for now. We'll start with the table. We'll add some more stuff to it later. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start with a cube. And open up my goodies here. So I've got my modeling toolkit, which we'll be using. The attribute editor. I'm going to go over here to Polycube 1, and I can start changing the width and height and depth as I need. So I'm going to set that to about 6. Set the depth to 4-ish. That works. And the height, I believe, to 0.2. That looks thick enough for a tabletop. All right. Okay, now I'm going to right-click on my mouse, and I'm going to go to Faces here. And you can see I can grab individual faces of the cube, which isn't really cubic anymore. So I'm going to grab this top one. With that selected, I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit here along the side. If yours isn't on, click on this weird-looking Rubik's Cube with a hammer to turn that on. So now I've got a modeling toolkit, and I'm going to use the Extrude tool. Usually what Extrude does for us is it lets us create new faces. pulling them out different directions. I'm going to undo that. Another piece of this is the offset. And what we're going to do for now is we're going to start in the offset and just start typing in values until we get what we want. 1 is too much. What I want to do is inset the table here by about, say, 0.25. That's good. I click on this to undo the extrude. To turn off the extrude tool and start a new one. I'll click extrude again. I'm going to go 0.25 again. Let's just go 0.2 this time. Click to turn that off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this inner frame that I just created. Right? So I took my one face and I turned it into all these. So I'm going to grab the inside part, these 4, and I'm going to click extrude, and this time I'm going to grab this blue arrow and pull that up. So now looking at our table, now remember we're looking at it from the bottom side. This is our frame that's going to kind of hold everything together. Turn that off. And we've added some cool definition to our table. All right, now I'm going to go to edges. I'm going to select first this one edge on the inside here, and then the one right opposite of it, and I'm going to use the connect tool. Let me scroll this down. I'm going to want 2 segments. The slide at 50% here just means that whatever I create is going to be 50% in the middle, right centered. Pinch is what I want. Let me just start typing numbers in here. Say 1.4, 1.5. I want more than that. We'll go 1.7. And again, all right, I've got connect on here, and if I start grabbing new lines, it's going to start trying to do weird stuff. So let me go back to what I had before. I just want these 2 lines connected, and then let me turn that off so that as I select new things, it doesn't try to update itself and create new lines. So now I've got 2 new lines in here, and I'm going to select the other 2 lines. I'm using shift and click to select multiple items here. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines selected, and just to be sure, I'm going to come up here to display, and my heads up display, I'm going to go ahead and click on poly count. Alright, now this puts these numbers up in our top left corner of our viewport. As you can see, this is the entire scene, this is the object that is active, and this is what's actually selected of that object. So in my whole scene, I have 50 edges. There's 50 in this table, and I have 4 selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click on connect again. It retains the settings we had before, so I've got 2 segments at 1.7 apart. I'm going to pull that pinch down just a bit until they're more square. Close enough. Click the arrow to turn it off. And now what I've done is let me go back into face mode here. I've made 4 little squares in the corners of the inside here to be the actual table legs. So I've got all 4 of those selected. I've got 4 faces, which equals 8 tries. Every square is actually broken up into triangles, so that's what the tries is about. So I've got 4 squares selected. Click on extrude, grab that arrow, and pull them up. And that's about what we want. That looks like a table. So I'm going to go into object mode. Whoop, not UV shell, object mode. Stop it. Alright, select that, and I'm going to flip it right side up. So I'm going to drag on this a bit until it looks roughly straight. And then what I can do is I can go to my attribute editor over here on the side, and if I click these arrows over all the way to the end on the left side, I can get access to my translations, rotations, and scale, and I can see that I did not get that perfect, so I want that at 180, not 181, and now it's all square. Pull that up. I'm going to go ahead and hit the space bar to go into my 4 views. Right click in the side view here and hit spacebar again. Zoom in, and I just about did that right. So this is our grid line, our imaginary floor right here, and I did drag that just right about even to the floor. So now we have a table. I'm going to hit space, click into that viewport and space again. And we've got a table. The only problem with this table is if some little one comes walking through here or running through here, they can gouge their eyes right there on the corner. So we're going to make this a little more ornate and safe. So I'm going to go back into edge mode, and I'm going to start grabbing these corner edges. Alt and click to tumble around, shift click to grab that edge, and again. And I've got 4 edges selected. I hit F to zoom in on them, and I'm going to use another piece from our modeling toolkit over here, and that's going to be bevel. And so by default, it gives us a 0.5 fraction with 1 segment. Let me up that to about 4 segments, and now you can see we have a nicely rounded edge of our table. We can play with the fraction size and make that a lot bigger, make it real small, but it's still going to give us that many segments. That looks pretty good at 0.5. We'll leave it there. And now we have a table. So we go back into object mode, and really quick what I'm going to do is, rather than have just a gray table, I'm going to create a wooden texture to go on this. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to open up Photoshop. I have Creative Cloud 2015, so I'm going to open that up. Just to be safe, I'm going to come back into Maya. I'm going to hit Command S. Let's save this thing. Don't want to lose anything while we're elsewhere. All right, Photoshop. And I'm going to create a new file. Very similar to what I've created before. So I'm going to have a width of 1024 and a height of 1024. So there's my new file. And I've already selected here 2 kind of brown colors, but we can play with variants of that. And you can find most of your browns somewhere between orange and yellow on this color swatch here. Or we can go into swatches themselves, and there should already be some nice things selected. So I'll just go ahead and select this brown. And for this second one, I'll grab this real dark one. All right, I'm going to use the paint bucket and just paint one of those colors here on the background. And then the real work is just in the filter. So I'm going to click Filter, Render, and Fibers. And what Fibers does is it takes the 2 colors we have and really gives us almost a wood grain. So I've got a 16 variants here. Just going to play with those. So the higher up I bring that, the more kind of spotted it becomes. And right about where it was, at around 15, 16, is where we really get that lined look. And you can play with those till you get what you want, or you can just hit randomize and see what comes out. So randomize doesn't change these, but it just kind of changes the grain itself. As it turns out, about what we had to begin with is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I've got a real dark wood grain here. I'm going to save that. So I'm going to save as. go to my Maya projects. This is in Furniture 2, and I'm going to want to save it in my Images folder. So I'm going to call this, I want it as a PNG. That's already set for me. I'm going to start this with an M, which is really helpful later on for going back and forth to game engines. For M for material, I'll just call it wood grain and save that in our Images folder. All those settings are fine, and that's good for Photoshop. And we'll come back into Maya. I'm going to click on my Hypershade window here, which is this little magic 8-ball looking icon up here, or you could alternatively go to Windows, I believe rendering editors, yeah, and then Hypershade's in there. So either way you want to get there. I think there's a keyboard shortcut as well. This Lambert 1 is what everything that we create gets as soon as we start creating in Maya. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new Lambert. And it just called it Lambert 2. But I'm going to go ahead and call it M wood grain, the same as what we had before, and hit enter. And then here where it says color, I'm going to click on this checkered box here. And I'm going to go to 2D textures and file. All right, to indicate that we want to use a file for this texture. And I've come over to this other node, and under image name, I'm going to click on this folder. And it looks like it wants me to look in source images, but I'm going to go over here to images. And there's the wood grain that I created. I'm going to open that up. And here in our cool little model of what a material might look like, you can see we've got wood grain applied. So that nice dark wood grain is there. That's already set. I'm just going to go ahead and X out the Hypershade editor. And what I can do now is I can select my table and right click, go down to assign existing material, and there's our wood grain. Now it won't show up right away unless you've turned on your textures and materials. I'm going to hit the 6 on my keyboard. And shaded display with texture maps is now on. You can see that my wood grain is there on the table. And it looks pretty good on the top of this. But as we zoom in closer, you can see on the legs, it's all stretchy, right? So what happens is when Maya applies these texture maps, it applies it to the, according to what the object originally was. In this case, it was a flat box, right? And then we started stretching and pulling new elements out for these legs and this brace, and so it's all stretchy on there. So I'm going to show you a quick way to take care of that. We're not gonna worry too deeply about what magic is happening behind the scenes, but with the table selected, I'm going to click on UV, and then just click Automatic, and then all this weird stuff's going to come up. We're going to click on our Select tool to get out of that, and then go back into Object mode. And now you can see that our texture is nicely applied to the legs without all that weird stretchiness. So now we've got a cool table. So let me pull that aside. And let's get a quick chair using pretty much everything we just used. So that might be a little small. So I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and I'm going to start using Polycube 2, here's what it's called. I'm going to start changing this up. So let's say we give it 1.5 and 1.5 on the width and depth, and then we'll go back to the, was it 0.2 we had on the height of the table itself? That looks about right. And we've got the start of a chair. Same as we did our tabletop. There's a chair where we're going to sit down. All right, so this time instead of modeling from the bottom and flipping it over, I'm just going to pan over here to the bottom, and we'll do almost exactly what we did before. So I'm going to go to Faces, Modeling Toolkit, use my Extrude to offset this. How in the world 1000 got selected, I don't know. Let's try 1. There we go. Too much. 0.2 might still be a little much. We'll go to 0.1. So we got a little bit of overhang there. You know what, let's go 0.05. Click that, extrude again. Here I'm going to go to 0.1. No, 0.05 again. And just like we did before, I'm going to go ahead and click these 4 faces, pull them down to be a brace for our legs. So I'm going to extrude, drag that down just a bit. And I'm going to start grabbing the inside edges and connecting those up to make our legs. Our settings are still on, so that looks good. Click connect again to turn it off. Grab the 4, click connect again. And once more to turn it off. And now I've got the 4 little squares. So I'm going to grab those faces. Give myself some room to work and then pull them down. Just looks like a miniature table. You know what? Those legs don't look like they're going to support anything either. So I'm going to hit Command Z. We're going to undo this extrude. We're going to start moving some things. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these edges. So I've grabbed all 12 of the edges that we just created on the inside, and I'm going to scale them. Not what I had in mind. It's behaving oddly. You know what I think happened is we got some, see that we have some extra connects in there. Somehow we click connect one too many times, and we've got more edges and vertices in there than I think we need. So I'm going to grab all the vertices. So I'm going to go to vertex mode. Just going to click and drag out like a little window and get all the vertices selected. Go up here to mesh. Nope, edit mesh, and then merge. I'm going to click this box here, and this is going to take all vertices that are kind of overlapping by about this threshold, that fractional amount, and it's going to merge them into one. So before I hit this, you can see I've got 52 vertices selected. I'm going to go ahead and click merge, and I'm down to 36. And none of the rest of this little model seems to be changed. So I think we successfully collapsed all the vertices that were just kind of hanging out over the top of each other. I'm going to go back into edge mode. Whoop. Accidentally clicked select all. Okay, so I've got my 12 edges selected. Let me try and scale them again. Not that way. Let me try this way. Scaling does not seem to be what I actually want to do here. I'm going to Command Z, undo that. I'll just move them. We'll move them by hand. So I'm going to grab this row, pull it out. I'm just going to move these out by hand 3 at a time. I'm just trying to make thicker legs is really all I'm trying to do. So before I pull those legs out, I'm making these squares bigger so that the legs look a little more like they can hold our weight. There we go, got all 3. Pull that out, good enough. Okay. Now I've got those 4 faces, and I'm going to extrude them out. There, those look a little more like it. Pull them down some more. Turn off the extrude tool. I think what I'm going to do, that chair may be too small, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one and this one, so that the two leg ends farthest from the table, and I'm going to move those out just a little bit. Kind of give a little more bracing to that chair. All right, now up top, I'm going to go to edges, grab these two edges, hit F to zoom in, and I'm going to connect them, but I don't want two. This time I want one segment, and the pinch isn't going to matter. What I need to do this time is slide it. So one edge slid about 9 over looks to be too much for what I want. Let's go to 8. 8.5. Go to 8.6. That'll work. Close enough. All right, I'm going to grab that new edge and then this far edge, and I'm going to go back to my connect tool. But this time again, I want 2 segments. Turn that slide down to 0.5 so that they're centered, and I'm going to pinch them back out. 1.2 looks about right. I'm going to grab these 2 new faces, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude them up a few times. So I'm going to pull this up a bit. Now see, if I just grabbed it again, it'd just keep going where it was. But if I click extrude and then click extrude again, then I get a new segment. So I want a long segment, a shorter segment, another longer segment. Zoom out a bit. Click extrude once, another shorter segment. And turn that off. Okay, now I've got what I want there. I'm going to grab these 2 faces that are exactly opposite of each other, and I'm going to use another tool called Bridge, and that just bridges right in between those. I'm going to turn that down to 2 segments, and we're going to leave it like that. I want to want to show you one thing about the Bridge tool. So I'm going to grab this face, I'll grab this face, and I'll grab this face. I'll grab 3 of them, and I'll try and bridge that. All right, and see down here, some faces were deleted but not used in this bridge. So I'm going to Command Z and undo that. Go back to faces and just grab the 2 I actually want to bridge. Anyway, the point of that was when you're bridging from one face to another, or any selection to another, the number of vertices on each side need to match, right? So this face has 4 vertices, and this face over here has 4 vertices, and so Maya can easily extrapolate, okay, what do I need to bridge between those? When I had 2 faces selected, then I had 4 vertices over here and 6 vertices over here selected, and Maya couldn't successfully complete that bridge. So when you know you're going to be using a bridge modifier or a modeling tool, then you need to make sure that you line up and create exactly the amount of geometry you're going to need to be on either side of that. Anyway, I'm going to click bridge. I'm going to go back to 2 again on that. And that's good. Just for decoration, I'm going to go back to face, and I'm going to pull up these top 2 just a little bit more, just kind of a little knob on the top. And now that looks like a chair back, but we can do more with it. So let me go to faces. I'm going to grab all of that. I use Control. I'm going to deselect those. So now I've just got that top part. I'm going to pull it back some. And use Control and click, unselect all of those and those. And I'm going to pull back some more. And kind of keep working my way up. There we go. So we've got a nice angle, and I'll leave that top kind of straight. So now it's been pulled back, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab these faces, those segments I created down the middle, and I'm going to push them back just a touch too. And that kind of gives a little more space for your spine, a little something to lean against. Now that looks like a much more comfortable chair. Go to Object Mode, and I can apply the same texture as I did before. Give that chair a nice wood grain. And let's pull that up onto the line roughly. And again, we have a toddler chair for a giant table. So let me pull that table down. I don't know what happened there. And this toddler chair. Yeah, look at the size of that. That's not going to work. So I'm going to grab that chair, and I'm going to use my scaling tool over here, and I'm just going to scale it up. Pull my table over. That looks about right. Maybe a little large. There's my autosave at work. Scale the chair down just a little bit. Move it down just a little bit. All right. So let me move my table over. Move all the way to the edge here. I'm going to move that back to the middle of the room, our imaginary room. I'm going to move the chair out here. And that's great. Just a little placement. All right. Zoom in on that chair. You can see we still have the same stretchy problem we did with the table. So we're going to do the same voodoo magic, UV, automatic, and then just try and click out all the nonsense. So we'll go back to object mode, and now that's laid out better. So this is great, but I can't have any friends over. So what I'm going to do is, with this chair selected, I'm going to use duplicate, Command D or Control D. And I just created a new chair. Slide that over. There's almost not enough room for the two chairs on the one side. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name these objects. So now I've got like P cube 1 and P cube 3 and P cube 2. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to grab the table and I'm going to call it, gosh, I don't know, table. And then we'll call this chair 1. Call that chair 2. We should be able to see what's going on now in our scene a little easier. One other thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a total of 4 chairs around this table. So File, Edit. We don't need File, just need Edit. And then the Duplicate Special here, I'm going to click on this little box. And I'm going to say I want one copy of what I'm duplicating. And I'm just going to guess on where it needs to go. Say I want to move it. We'll call it. So you can see the chairs I've got selected are about 1/8. So let's say 3/6 over, and I'm going to want to rotate it by 180. And I'm just guessing on which one of these I need, and duplicate special. Great. So I created 2 new chairs, and they moved over to be the other side of the table, but I rotated them on the wrong axis. Try it again. Zero there. We'll try 180 on this axis here. There we go. So I've got a total of 4 chairs, and they did name themselves properly. So I do have chair 3 and chair 4, and they moved over to the other side of the table, and we're all set for dinner or studying or whatever. So we've got a table and we've got some chairs. Finally, what I want to do is I want to move these over and create a bookshelf. So same tools we've been using all along, and a couple extra. So create a new box. Go ahead and let's make that about 5 wide. We'll make it 4 wide, 6 high, and about 1.5 in depth. It looks roughly scaled for a nice bookcase for what we've got going on with the rest of our furniture. And I'm going to go over here to the subdivision heights, and I'm going to say give me 3, nay 4 heights. Right, and so and instead of just doing the connect tool to make lines where we need them, I can, as I create the object, I can plan out what I want. So now I've got 4 heights here, which, as you might imagine, might be good for 4 different shelves. So I'm going to go to face mode, and I'm going to grab the 4 front faces, modeling toolkit to extrude, and I can use my offset. So I'm going to go to 0.2 just to see what's going on. But as you can see, right, what's happening is it's offsetting just those, all those is one offset, right? So I'm just getting one frame. So one thing I could do is I can go to keep faces together and click on the off, and now it's offsetting each face by itself, and I've got 4 slots for shelves. So really quick, with those 4 selected, I'm going to come up here and click on this little guy for X-ray. And now everything in our scene is kind of X-rayed. You can kind of see through. This will be helpful as I try and push these shelves in. So I'm going to grab those 4 faces, and I'm going to extrude them in. And with X-ray on, I can see that I don't, see that I go far enough without going too far. We don't want to go outside. We don't want them all the way up against. So roughly there. Thanks, X-ray. You've been a real pal. Turn that back off. And I've got bookshelves. I'm going to grab the top. I'm going to extrude it up just a little bit. And I'm going to grab the front, and I'm going to extrude that out just a little bit, just to some kind of definition and decoration on our shelf. So we've got a lip up there. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to give some legs for this bookshelf. Using our connect tool and our edges. Same as we've done before, connect. I'm going to go not nearly as far. That's fine. grab these faces and I'm going to extrude them down for legs. I'll bet you knew I was going to do that. So I'm going to come down just a little bit. And then click extrude and come down just a little bit more. All right, I'm going to set my bookcase down on the ground about where I think I want it to intersect. And then finally, I'm going to come in here and we're going to use one more little tool to add some decoration to this. So I'm going to go to face, select that face and zoom in, right? So this is the inside of the leg from the bottom. And actually what I want to do is I want to go to multi-selection. So this lets me select faces and then edges, vertices, whatever I want, right? Instead of just restricting me to one selection type. But now I want to select, so I've got this one face selected and this one edge up here selected, and yeah, you can see that I've got one edge and one face selected. I'm going to go down here to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to use the Wedge tool. And so what this does is it takes that face that I've got selected and it rotates it out, wedges it out along that edge that I selected. So I want to bring it out at 90 degrees, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to put it at about 6 divisions. And let's see what that does. That gives us a nice rounded piece, right, to make those legs look a little more ornate. I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to try it on the, oh, there's our autosave. I'm going to try it on the back one here as well. And it just adds a little decoration, makes things look nice. We could do the back legs if we want. I find most of my bookcases don't bother decorating at the back end. They figure that's against the wall. So I'm going to go to Object Mode. I'm going to apply the texture that we've got, wood grain. I'm going to look and see that it is all jaggy and zaggy, right? Because we've stretched and extruded a lot. So I'm going to go back to UV and automatic. And there we go. Now I've got a bookcase and a table and some chairs. I've got a great start of a library or a dining room, study of some sort. We've made furniture. We've made wooden furniture using just a few simple tools and some cubes. Pretty cool stuff.